Hey guys, tonight we're going to travel back to a time when the oceans were wide. The ships were leaky, and the pineapple, yes, the pineapple, struck more fear into the hearts of 18th century sailors than pirates ever could. Picture this. A humid morning somewhere in the Caribbean Sea. The sky is streaked with faded lavender clouds. You're standing barefoot on the groaning deck of a British merchant ship. The wood beneath you is damp from last night's rain. And the scent? A festive mix of fish guts, tar, and that one guy who hasn't bathed in 11 weeks. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step forward carefully, sidestepping a broken bucket of cod. The deck groans under your weight, which is impressive, considering how little you've eaten. A sailor sneezes near the rigging, and everyone instinctively flinches. You don't know if he has the sniffles or scurvy. And honestly, neither does he. Life aboard the ship is not the swashbuckling fantasy you've seen in movies. There's no dramatic swordplay. There's just the endless creaking of timber, the rhythmic slap of waves, and a lot of very irritable men with questionable hygiene habits. You're wearing linen trousers that itch constantly, and a shirt that was last washed during the previous administration. Saltwater sprays your face every few minutes, which is refreshing until you realize it's also slowly dissolving your boots. The air smells of brine, stale beer, and something vaguely reminiscent of wet bread. Welcome aboard. The crew greets you with a collective grunt. Most of them are barefoot, half sunburned, and missing at least one tooth. One man has replaced his lost tooth with what appears to be a bead from a rosary. Another swears his molar simply jumped ship. Historians still argue whether sailors truly believed their teeth could abandon them out of sheer frustration. You're handed a rope and told to haul the line. You have no idea what that means, but everyone is doing it, so you pretend. The ship lurches forward as a gust of wind catches the sail. Your stomach drops, your knees wobble, and you realize this is your home for the next few months. The captain, a stern man with a hat large enough to host its own tea party, emerges from his cabin. He glares at the crew with an intensity usually reserved for poorly cooked steak. He's clutching something round, spiky, and golden. A pineapple. The entire crew goes silent. Someone drops a spoon. Another makes the sign of the cross. One man whispers, "Not again. You don't understand. It's just a fruit, right?" Wrong. That pineapple is a symbol. It might as well be a cannonball. In the 18th century, this seemingly innocent fruit could spark panic, jealousy, or even a duel. To hold one was to declare yourself elite. To drop one? Social suicide. On a ship, it was worse. Some sailors believed pineapples cursed the voyage. You try to ask someone why they're so afraid, but your question is met with a wary side eye and a whispered, "Don't speak of the golden devil." You file that away. Back to the crew. They're scrubbing the deck with seawater and sand, a process that technically counts as cleaning but mostly just redistributes grime. One man is singing a sea shanty about a goat that became admiral of a Spanish fleet. This is apparently a historical reference. Historians still argue whether the goat was real or metaphorical, but the tune is catchy either way. The cook emerges from below, his apron stained with things you don't want to identify. He holds a pot the size of a small child. "Dinner's on," he bellows. You immediately regret looking inside. Floating in a thin, grayish broth are a few chunks of meat, possibly beef. Probably not, and some carrots that appear to have lost the will to live. The crew lines up eagerly. Hunger, it turns out, has no pride. The ship jolts again. The sky is beginning to shift to a deeper blue. Night is coming, and with it, the uneasy creak of the timbers, the occasional cough from below deck, and the knowledge that you're surrounded by nothing but endless, indifferent ocean. Above you, the sails flap like tired wings. A few gulls screech overhead, mocking you in bird language. You suspect they're laughing at your hat. The man next to you starts to mutter about the last ship that brought a pineapple on board. Something about a storm, a broken mast, and a sailor who vanished after biting into the fruit too confidently. You try to smile, but it comes out as more of a wince. You decide not to ask for a slice. You wake to the sound of chewing. Not casual, friendly chewing, no. This is aggressive, possibly resentful chewing. As your eyes adjust to the dimness of the lower deck, you spot the culprit. A sailor gnawing on what appears to be a piece of wood. Only it's not wood, it's hardtack. You're handed your own piece and immediately understand why so many sailors end up toothless. The biscuit is dense, bone dry, and feels like it's been baked sometime during the previous century. Which it may well have been. You try to bite it, fail, and then resort to soaking it in your soup from yesterday, assuming you can find your bowl and it hasn't wandered off under its own power. Hardtack is a sailor's staple. It's cheap, lasts forever, and has the comforting texture of ceramic tile. Sometimes you get lucky, and the biscuits are only slightly moldy. Other times, they come with free passengers, tiny white worms wriggling through the floury surface like it's a country inn. You're told, with a chuckle, just tap it on the table to get the weevils out. That's not a joke, that's the method. The smell in the mess area is layered. Salted beef, sweat, mildew, and a haunting hint of what might once have been an onion. You do your best not to inhale too deeply. You hear one of the older sailors explaining that the worms actually mean the biscuit is fresh-ish. Historians still argue whether this was said with irony or sincere optimism. The cook is stirring another pot. You dare to peer in. It's a beige slurry, possibly porridge, but possibly the glue they use to fix sails. He slaps your hand when you hover too close. Nearby, a rat scurries across the floor and disappears into the bread locker. No one reacts. That's just Roger. Roger the rat is more respected than some of the junior crew. He knows the ship better than you, has weathered more storms, and possibly outranks you by now. He once bit a man who insulted the captain's toupee. Everyone still talks about it. You bite into the hardtack again, this time using the side of your mouth like a nervous hamster. A corner breaks off and bounces off your boot. You think you might save it for later, but it promptly rolls through a puddle of something yellowish and loses all appeal. A sudden shout from above deck. Sail on the horizon. Everyone leaps into motion. You scramble up the ladder behind a man who's humming a cheerful song about shipwrecks. The sun is high now, blinding against the sea's surface. Out on the horizon, a dark silhouette, a ship. Possibly pirate, possibly worse. You squint. Turns out, it's just a Dutch trading vessel with a very dramatic figurehead. Still, it was a nice moment of panic to stretch the legs. Back on deck, the discussion quickly returns to lunch. Specifically, whether this is salt beef day or other salt beef day. There is technically a difference, but it's mostly semantic. One sailor, a young man from Yorkshire, claims to have seen a banana once. No one believes him. Fruit is a mythical concept aboard this vessel. It exists in stories, in dreams, and in the occasional marmalade jar if you're of high enough rank. You're not. You ask one of the men about the last time he had a pineapple. He winces and touches the brim of his hat. Don't talk about that cursed fruit. He mutters. We brought one on board 3 voyages ago. 3. He holds up 2 fingers. You decide not to correct him. Another sailor explains that on some ships, they had a pineapple chained in the galley, not to eat, but as a sort of ward against misfortune. Like garlic against vampires, only stickier. Historians still argue whether this was rooted in genuine superstition or just a very poor understanding of nutrition. You learn that pineapples are rare, pricey, and so absurdly precious in port cities that rich merchants used to rent them out, just to show off at parties. No one actually ate them. They just placed them in the middle of the table, as if to say, look what I could consume if I weren't so painfully tasteful. Back on the ship, you return to the mess for a second helping of hardtack. This time you toast it slightly over the lantern flame, just to soften the edges. It now tastes like burnt dust. A small improvement. The crew breaks into song. A shanty about a monkey who outwitted a French admiral using only a pair of socks and a coconut. You hum along, wondering whether the coconut ever had to deal with hardtack. You overhear the cook whispering to a deckhand about something special for dinner. This is met with both dread and excitement. Special can mean anything from salt pork that isn't green to a surprise pineapple. You hope it's neither. Night falls again. The ship is calm. The sea is a dark silk blanket beneath a moon that winks at you like it knows what's coming next. You curl up in your hammock. your stomach full of slightly softened hardtack and a single sad carrot. Around you, the crew is snoring, mumbling, or softly singing to themselves. One man is whispering to his biscuit. You decide not to ask. You awaken with a start. Or more accurately, you awaken with a slosh. A sudden sway of the ship has dumped an entire bucket of seawater across the floorboards. And it's now cheerfully seeping into your hammock. Congratulations. You've been christened by the Atlantic. You swing out of your makeshift bed, bare feet squelching against soaked timber, and are immediately reminded of today's greatest challenge, not mutiny, not starvation, but a far more personal terror. The toilet. If you were hoping for a neat little room with a door and a handle, abandon all hope. The bathroom on this ship is little more than a plank bolted over the side of the hull. Sailors call it the head, and it offers the kind of thrilling experience usually reserved for roller coasters and bad dares. You shuffle over toward the bow. The wind cuts across your face. The ship pitches to one side as a wave rolls under you. And for a moment you seriously consider waiting until landfall, wherever and whenever that may be. But necessity is a persuasive motivator. You brace one hand against the railing, balance yourself with the grace of an uncoordinated flamingo, and do your best to commune with the sea. This is your life now. Some sailors claim that falling overboard while using the head is a guaranteed way to vanish forever. Both literally and from the ship's log, there are whispered stories of men who went for a midnight bathroom visit and were never seen again. Historians still debate whether these tales were meant as cautionary warnings or a convenient excuse for questionable disappearances. As you wobble back toward the center of the ship, you pass the communal washing bucket. It's basically a wooden barrel filled with yesterday's water, sea salt, and the collective regrets of the crew. You splash your face half-heartedly and pat yourself dry with a square of sailcloth. Your breath fogs the morning air. It's cooler today, cool enough that a few of the men are wearing coats that look like they were tailored by someone with a personal vendetta against sleeves. One man is using a fish scale as a button. Another has fashioned mittens out of rope. No one questions it. You glance down the length of the ship, where two sailors are currently arguing over who gets the last turnip. The cook is chopping something on a crate. You pray it's not the rat. Roger is beloved, but desperation is a powerful flavor enhancer. You notice something unusual, a slight fragrance in the air. It's fruity, sweet, exotic. You follow your nose like a cartoon hound and arrive at the captain's quarters. There it is again, pineapple. You hear muffled conversation behind the door, and the faint clinking of cutlery. A private breakfast. No one else has been invited. Of course, you retreat, not wanting to be caught eavesdropping on elite fruit consumption. Back on deck, you find yourself chatting with an older sailor named Merrick, who's been to every port with a name and a brothel. He's leaning against a barrel, whittling what may or may not be a spoon, and tells you that pineapples were once thought to cure everything, from seasickness to syphilis. He chuckles, missing half his teeth. Didn't help me none, he says. You ask him about the bathroom situation. He shrugs. Better than the French. They just go in their boots. You don't ask if he's joking. Below deck, someone drops a jug, and an echoing splash confirms that the fresh water barrel has once again been violated by clumsiness and gravity. That's the third one this week. You learn that water isn't always stored in barrels. Sometimes it's kept in canvas sacks, which give it a charmingly gamey flavor over time. Within a few weeks, most drinking water becomes a kind of soup. Not from ingredients, just from entropy. Hence, grog. But we'll get to that. Later in the day, the ship runs into a sudden squall. Rain lashes the sails, the deck tilts wildly, and you cling to the rigging like a particularly useless spider. A flash of lightning reveals the cook trying to catch his ladle midair. He fails. The storm passes, as they do, leaving everyone soaked and the latrine slightly more terrifying than usual. That night, you're invited to participate in a sacred crew ritual, the bucket game. This involves guessing whether the mysterious liquid in a bucket is seawater, rainwater, or soup. You guess wrong. The punishment is mopping. With the bucket, you retire to your hammock feeling wiser, damper, and distinctly less confident in your ability to identify liquids. Just before sleep claims you, a whisper floats through the shadows. The pineapple, it's in the captain's quarters again. You don't know whether to be jealous or afraid. The next morning greets you with the cheerful bellow of, "All hands on deck," which is 18th century sailors speak for, "Get up. We're pretending something important is happening." You stumble into your boots, which are still wet from yesterday's bucket game, and haul yourself above deck. The sky is brilliant blue. The sea is uncharacteristically calm. Even the gulls seem slightly less smug. Then you see it. A ship in the distance. This time, it's not a Dutch merchant with an inflated ego, it's leaner. Faster. Darker. A hint of red paint along the bow. The flag isn't visible yet, but the murmurs ripple through the crew before anyone says a word. Could be pirates, someone mutters, with a mix of boredom and mild annoyance. Not fear, not dread, just irritation, like discovering your neighbor is hosting another loud barbecue. You expected panic, cannon fire, sword fights, the clatter of cutlasses and the roar of musketry. Instead, the crew just sort of cleans up a little. One sailor straightens his hat. Another discreetly shaves half his face with a pocket knife. The cook adds an extra spoon of salt to the soup, muttering something about making a good impression. As the ship draws closer, the lookout finally confirms it, pirates. You brace yourself for a fight, but the pirates appear to be waving. The two ships pull alongside each other, and there, standing proudly at the bow of the other vessel, is a man in a flamboyant red coat and more jewelry than seems practical at sea. He tips his feathered hat in a graceful arc. A small rowboat is lowered, and the captain of your ship sighs as if hosting a dinner guest who never RSVPs. The pirate party boards, about half a dozen sunburned men with wild beards and suspiciously polite manners. They carry no weapons, just sacks. You assume gold. They open them. Bananas. Bananas and cloth napkins. The two crews gather on deck, and a trading session begins. Spices, fabric, rum, a bottle of something that smells like regret. And yes, fruit. You're handed a bruised orange by a pirate with surprisingly nice teeth. "Eat it slow," he says. "Took us 3 weeks to find." You take a cautious bite. It's sweet. You forget, just for a moment, that your socks are damp and your breakfast was mostly weevil. The pirates aren't terrifying. They're tired, talkative. One of them offers you a carved spoon. Another asks if you've seen his parrot. The bird is apparently bilingual and a terrible gambler. You learn that piracy, in the 18th century, is less about swashbuckling and more about strategic loitering. Pirates often relied on reputation rather than violence. They'd raise a black flag and hope you were too nervous to put up a fight. Historians still argue whether some of the more infamous pirates, like Blackbeard, were genuinely brutal or just excellent marketers. During the impromptu fruit swap, the pirate captain pulls a pineapple from his sack and holds it aloft like a prize. Your captain visibly tenses. Everyone freezes. The wind dies. No one speaks. Then the pirate captain laughs and sets it on the deck like a prop. "Decoration," he says, "not dinner." There's a long exhale of collective relief. You're not entirely sure why, but even Roger the Rat pauses to sniff the air cautiously. Later, after the pirates return to their ship, leaving behind gifts, gossip, and a few new sea shanties, the crew gathers to reflect. "That pineapple," one sailor says, "was too symmetrical." Another nods solemnly. "Too perfect to trust." You're beginning to understand the logic. Pineapples, in their bizarre spiky grandeur, don't seem natural. They look like they were designed by committee. Holding one at sea feels like tempting fate. Back below deck, you eavesdrop on a few of the older sailors sharing pineapple lore. One swears he served on a ship where a single slice of pineapple led to a mutiny. Another claims that pineapples call storms, like thunder gods in fruity disguise. One story involves a man who carved a pineapple figurehead for his private vessel. The ship was struck by lightning within a week and devoured by whales. You suspect embellishment. Historians still argue whether the whale was real or metaphorical. That night, you dream of pineapples, not eating them, running from them. Spiky, golden spheres rolling down gangplanks, bouncing across decks, chasing you through clouds of citrus-scented fog. You wake up clutching your pillow like a lifeline. Breakfast is hardtack again, but the orange wedge from the pirate's visit remains in your pocket. You nibble it slowly, savoring the taste like a secret. It's the best thing you've eaten in weeks. And yet, you glance sideways at the captain's door. Still closed, still fragrant. Still, suspicious. Or peeling potatoes when it happens. A loud thump. A creak of wood. A gasp. All heads turn toward the captain's quarters. The door, usually sealed tighter than a miser's coin purse, swings open slowly with the drama of a theater curtain. And there it is again. The pineapple, perched on a polished silver dish, glowing golden in the dappled light of the morning sun. Like a crown, like an idol, like a guest of honor at a very exclusive tea party. You freeze mid-peel. The potato drops. No one dares speak. The captain steps forward, hat slightly askew, eyes narrowed. He carries the pineapple with the kind of reverence usually reserved for sacred relics or fragile wine glasses. A few sailors shuffle backward, muttering under their breath. One makes a sign of protection using his fingers. Another takes off his hat and holds it to his chest, as if mourning. The pineapple is placed on a crate. The captain stares at it. Then he turns to the crew. "We've made good time," he says. No one is sure whether this is an announcement, a threat, or just small talk. You realize you're holding your breath. The captain walks away, leaving the pineapple exactly where he set it. No explanation, no instructions, just the fruit. You edge closer to it, curious. It looks normal enough, symmetrical, spiky, dignified. You fight the urge to poke it. "That's a cursed one," Merrick whispers at your elbow. "Shipped it in from Tortuga. Never ripened proper." You ask him why that matters. He leans in. "Fruit that don't ripen right, fruit that resists its own purpose, that's not fruit anymore." You're not sure if this is philosophy or indigestion, but you nod respectfully. Later, in the shade of the mainsail, you learn the deeper lore. Pineapples, in certain corners of the 18th century seafaring world, were more than luxury, they were weapons. Social weapons. Back in port cities, the pineapple was the apex of hospitality. If someone invited you over and had a pineapple on the table, you were being welcomed with ridiculous, wallet-destroying honor. Some hosts even rented pineapples just for the illusion of wealth. You couldn't eat it, it had to be returned. Historians still argue whether this was more about status or the desperate need to impress people who wouldn't come back anyway. But at sea, pineapples meant something else. Jealousy, recklessness, favoritism. You hear a tale about a first mate who received a pineapple slice directly from the governor of a colonial outpost. The crew revolted within days. They claimed it rotted his judgment. He eventually fell overboard, possibly assisted. There's even a theory that pineapples were used to test loyalty. If a sailor accepted one from a superior, it meant he was either favored or marked. No one could be sure which. You find yourself staring at the crate where the fruit still rests. It seems to be watching you. The cook joins you later at the stern, wiping his hands on a fish-scented rag. "I once knew a man who kept a pineapple in his locker. Said it helped him sleep. One night, he rolled off the bunk and cracked his skull on it." You wait for the punchline. There isn't one. The sun dips lower. Shadows stretch across the deck. The pineapple remains. By dinner, tensions are high. A new rumor spreads. The pineapple is going to be served. One man sharpens a knife nervously. Another sharpens his fork. The cook announces the meal: boiled pork scrap and cabbage water. The crew deflates in unison. No pineapple. Not yet. But it lingers. A symbol. A threat. A golden enigma. You lie in your hammock that night, rocking gently with the motion of the sea. The sounds of the ship lull you towards sleep, the flap of sails, the muttered snores of tired men, the gentle drip of something from the ceiling that you hope is just rainwater. Then, quietly, just as your thoughts begin to dissolve into dreams, a voice in the dark. "I saw the captain peel it." A pause. He didn't eat it, just looked at the rings. You shiver. Despite the heat, somewhere above you, the pineapple dreams too. Morning arrives with a bang. Literally. One of the deckhands has tripped over the crate holding the pineapple, sending it tumbling across the deck like a spiky cannonball. The entire crew stops mid-task as it rolls, wobbles, and comes to rest against the captain's boot. Time itself seems to pause. The captain glances down. No emotion, no anger. Just picks it up and places it silently back in its crate. You've seen men shouted at for less, like sneezing near a compass or stepping on the captain's shadow. But this desecration of the pineapple altar? Not even a raised eyebrow. You exchange looks with Merrick. "That ain't normal," he mutters. Wiping his forehead. Something's changing. At breakfast, the air is thick with speculation. The crew, never ones to let a good rumor die quietly, erupts into whispered debates. He's going to eat it. No, he's saving it for a royal inspection. Maybe he talks to it. Maybe it talks back. You're starting to believe that last one, while gnawing your way through another mushy root vegetable masquerading as stew. You learn about the pineapple's darker fame. It wasn't just a fruit, it was a prop in deadly games of etiquette. Back on land, in the grand dining halls of imperial officials and colonial governors, pineapples weren't consumed, they were displayed, placed at the center of the table. They functioned as edible chandeliers, dripping with importance. To slice one open was either an act of reckless wealth or a sign the host was showing off more than just his fruit budget. One tale tells of a man in Barbados who served pineapple to all his guests, only to be stabbed by his own butler for such flagrant waste. Historians still argue whether the incident was personal, political, or just an extreme opinion on tropical fruit distribution. You're told that in some Caribbean colonies, pineapples were so rare they could cost more than a month's wages. Ships would transport them on silk cushions, individually wrapped, guarded more heavily than muskets. And heaven forbid one got bruised, crews might be flogged, and careers ended, over a single dented pineapple. You wonder if the captain's is insured. By midday, the mood on deck shifts again. Clouds gather, not storm clouds, but the kind that signal a brooding sky. The wind smells of salt and something vaguely citrus. You spot the captain in quiet conversation with the ship's quartermaster. Both men glance toward the crate. Both look pale. A barrel tips over during routine loading. No one even flinches. All eyes are still on the fruit. The cook attempts to distract everyone by announcing a surprise pudding. This turns out to be dried peas mashed into a paste and shaped into a vaguely pudding-esque lump. Served cold, with pride. Still, it's a break from root soup and seawater. As night falls, the pineapple is moved, carried reverently by two sailors and set atop the main barrel of gunpowder. This is either incredibly symbolic or incredibly stupid. Merrick leans over. That's not good. You ask why. Means it's become an offering now. He whispers. You don't put fruit on explosives unless you're hoping it pleases something. You're not sure what's more unsettling, that statement, or how calmly it's delivered. Later, in the dim candlelight below deck, you overhear more stories. One crewman says he served on a ship where pineapples were used to test for poison. If it wilted overnight, they blamed the cook. If it didn't, they blamed the navigator. Another swears that pineapples left out in the open attracted ghost ships. Something about the scent reminding the dead of islands they never reached. The details are fuzzy. The fear is not. Historians still argue whether these stories were born of boredom, superstition, or an unhealthy combination of moldy food and fermented rum. You climb into your hammock, staring at the ceiling as it rocks with the ship's rhythm. A drop of condensation lands on your nose. You swipe it away. Your dreams are strange again. This time, you're attending a royal banquet. Everyone is silent. Hundreds of people sit around a table. In the center, one pineapple. No plates, no cutlery, just watching. When you reach for it, the fruit opens its eyes. You wake up sweating. Someone has moved the pineapple again. Now it sits in the ship's wheelhouse. You're not even surprised anymore. You're summoned above deck at dawn. Not for battle, not for duty. For your gums. A shout of, "Mouth check," rings out across the ship. And suddenly there's a line of drowsy sailors, all prying their mouths open like cattle at a fair. You follow suit, confused, until you catch a glimpse of one man's smile, or rather, what's left of it. Scurvy. His gums are swollen and purple, with little streaks of blood curling between his teeth. One tooth wobbles as he talks. He laughs it off, calls it just a tickle. But you can see the anxiety in his eyes. Your own mouth suddenly feels strange. You poke at your gums with your tongue. Are they always this tender? The captain paces down the line, inspecting mouths like a strange dentist with a naval hat. He passes you with a grunt. Apparently, you're still functional. Barely. Scurvy was the seafaring plague of the age, not just annoying, but fatal. A sailor could go from hearty to hobbling in a matter of weeks. Historians still debate how long it truly took for the body to collapse without citrus. But everyone agrees. No limes meant no time. The cure? Lemons, limes, oranges, and yes, pineapples. But that's the catch, isn't it? The ship is bursting with biscuits, barrels of dried beans, and salted meat of questionable origin, but not fruit. Or at least, not for you. The pineapple in the captain's quarters sits untouched, while men are literally bleeding from their gums. Merrick pulls you aside, whispers like a conspirator. You know, back in the Royal Navy, only the officers got the citrus. He says, the rest of us just bled. They used to call it the weep. You ask why they didn't just share. He looks at you like you've asked why whales don't wear shoes. It's a symbol, he mutters. If we all had it, it wouldn't be worth hoarding. You spend the morning nursing your aching teeth with a damp rag and staring wistfully at a barrel labeled lemon slices, officer use only. It's double locked. Around midday, a brief cheer goes up from the lower deck. Someone claims they found an old jar of marmalade under a crate of cannonballs. It's passed around like treasure. Each sailor allowed exactly one lick from a wooden spoon. You decline your turn. Something about the phrase, cannonball marmalade, feels wrong. The cook announces lunch, mystery stew. You don't ask, while slurping what might be turnip and might be shoe leather. You overhear more grumbling about the captain's precious pineapple. Some believe it has healing powers. Others think it's being preserved for a diplomat, or perhaps a queen. One man insists it's cursed, and that eating it will reverse time. You chew thoughtfully. Could be worse. That evening, you're assigned to help restock the medical locker. You descend into the lowest hold, where it's colder and smells like old fish and regret. There, tucked between rolls of gauze and broken bottles, you find a moldy logbook. Inside, lists of past voyages, crew deaths, and notes, scribbled comments about what cured who. One name stands out, Lieutenant Foster. Symptoms severe, gums burst, breath rotten, hair falling in handfuls, recovered after consuming 2 slices pineapple in rum. You pause. So the captain does know. You tuck the logbook under your shirt. That night, back in your hammock, you show it to Merrick. He squints in the candlelight, running his fingers over the ink. He knew, Merrick says quietly. He knew, and he kept it anyway. He doesn't sound angry, just tired. Across the room, someone coughs. A wet, rattling sound. You try not to think about your gums. Above you, the pineapple rests peacefully, untouched, untasted, glowing like a smug lantern of exclusivity. You close your eyes, and for a brief moment, imagine it sliced open, dripping golden juice, shared with the crew, sticky fingers reaching for wedges. But that's not how these stories go. Not yet. Your hands smell like rum and rope. It's grog day. Actually, every day is grog day, but today, you've been chosen to help mix it. You stand beside a cask the size of a tombstone, watching the cook ladle out dark, sloshing fluid with the solemnity of a priest at a rain-drenched altar. 2 parts water, 1 part rum, he mutters, unless morale's down. Then it's 3. He gestures to the barrels. And you begin the process, pouring, stirring, pretending not to inhale too deeply. The scent is thick, molasses, musk, and something that might be wet canvas. Or hope. Decayed. Grog was the Navy's solution to many things: hydration, hunger, mutiny, loneliness. Historians still argue whether it actually improved sailor health or simply made them too dizzy to notice how miserable they were. The crew lines up with wooden mugs and hollow stares. You serve them one by one, careful not to spill. Some thank you with a nod. Others simply grunt. One man cries softly as he drinks, unclear if it's from gratitude or because he's just realized the grog tastes like fermented shoe polish. You take a sip. It's like being slapped by a sponge soaked in sugar and regret. The burn creeps down your throat and lands in your stomach with a thud. This, apparently, is how you prevent scurvy, mutiny, and boredom, all at once. Later in the day, you overhear the quartermaster muttering about the pineapple again. I say burn it, he tells Merrick, or toss it to the sea. It's a temptation, a test. Merrick replies, it's a fruit, not a prophecy. You don't feel so sure. That evening, the captain hosts a small gathering in his quarters, officers only, of course. Laughter spills out from behind the door. You can hear cutlery clinking, soft music, a toast, then something else. The unmistakable crack of a fruit being split. You and the rest of the crew freeze where you stand. The pineapple, Someone breathes. The door stays shut. You return to your place below deck, stomach twisting, not from hunger, but from curiosity, jealousy, and a strange sensation you can't quite place. A longing, a fruit-fueled longing. Merrick joins you with a mug of grog. He offers a toast to the fruit that tastes better when you can't have it. You both drink. The next morning, someone finds a slice of pineapple rind in the trash pile behind the captain's quarters. It's yellow, glossy, slightly sticky, like treasure discarded. The crew crowds around, peering at it as if it's a relic from another age. You dare not touch it. That day, the grog is stronger than usual. The wind picks up, the ship creaks louder, or perhaps it's just your nerves. The cook starts throwing cloves into the stew, saying he's inspired by tropical flair. You think he's bluffing, but the result isn't entirely awful. Later, a sailor sings a ballad about an island where pineapples grow so large they can be hollowed out and used as bathtubs. It's clearly fiction, but the image stays with you. You dream of pineapple tubs and oceans made of juice. When you wake, your mouth tastes like rope. You learn a new word, pineapple fever. It's not a medical term, more like a condition of the soul. It's what sailors call the creeping obsession that builds when someone gets fruit and you don't. When the scent lingers in the air and the sweetness is just out of reach. When one man dines like a king, and you chew moldy biscuits like a raccoon with a dental plan. Merrick tells you he once served on a vessel where a crew member smuggled a pineapple out of the captain's quarters. Took a bite, and was never seen again. Thrown overboard? You ask. Voluntarily, he says. He just jumped. You're not sure if he's serious. You sip your grog. Somewhere above you, the captain sleeps with a full belly and sticky fingers. The rest of you dream of pulp, juice, and sharp golden crowns. Today starts with a bang. Not metaphorical, a real one. A dull, chest-thumping boom echoes through the lower deck as the powder monkey, a boy no older than 14 who handles gunpowder like it's flour, drops a sealed flask. A moment of silence, then relief. Nothing explodes. Still, it rattles everyone. Even Roger the rat bolts for cover, vanishing into the bread locker. And that's where the next horror awaits. You see it as soon as the hatch is flung open. A mass of pulpy, mold-coated bread, riddled with burrows and what appears to be an entire civilization of weevils. They scatter as light floods in, like tiny, panicked villagers fleeing the wrath of a bread-based god. A sailor groans. Weevils again, he mutters. Big ones this time. He holds one up by a stringy leg. You turn away. Something about its glossy eyes feels too sentient. You offer to help clean the locker, mostly as an excuse to breathe different air. You regret it immediately. The stench is indescribable. Mildew, fermented dough, stale salt, and what might be despair. You gag. Twice. You find a barrel that was once flour, now a wriggling, clumpy mess. Someone jokes that it's become sea cheese. You do not laugh. The cook arrives to inspect the damage. He sighs heavily, mutters something about starter cultures, and scoops a bit into a jar. You ask what he's doing. New base for bread soup. He replies, waste not. Historians still argue whether this culinary creativity was ingenuity, or a cry for help. Back above deck, fresh air never tasted so good. You breathe deeply and catch a faint, familiar aroma. Pineapple. You're not imagining it. The scent is stronger now. The captain has started using pineapple juice to flavor his private rations. A few drops here and there, just enough to taunt the nose. At lunch, the crew eats something vaguely porridge adjacent. Bland, beige, viscous. The officers? Roasted fish with pineapple glaze. How do you know? The cook, in an act of theatrical cruelty, describes it. Delicate flakes, hint of citrus, sweet finish. He says, pairs well with wine, if we had wine. You resist the urge to mutiny with your spoon. Later, you're assigned to patch barrels in the hold. It's cooler down here, and you're grateful for it, until you notice something odd near the back wall. A small crate, hidden under sacks of rope and spare cloth. Half-rotted, marked with a faded label, tropical fruit, handle with care. You pry it open carefully. Inside, remnants of long-spoiled pineapples. Now blackened husks, shrunk, dried, shriveled little crowns of once glorious fruit. You stare at them, they stare back. You close the crate. When you mention it to Merrick, he just nods. They tried to ship too many once. Didn't pack him right. Rotted mid-voyage. You ask what happened to the ship. Worms, mold, fever, rats, you name it. And the crew? Fought over the last fresh one. Captain ate it whole, skin and all. You blink. He didn't blink. Merrick adds, that's how we knew he'd gone. That evening, a rat bites a sailor who was trying to guard the remaining biscuit rations. It's not Roger. Thankfully, Roger has standards. This was an imposter. The injured man claims it was trying to take the pineapple. No one corrects him. The fruit hasn't moved from the wheelhouse. But it feels like it's watching more closely now. And so the rumors spread. Someone claims they heard the captain talking to it at night. Another swears it glows faintly under moonlight. A third simply says, I had a dream I was inside it. No one laughs anymore. During night watch, you catch a glimpse of the pineapple through the wheelhouse window. It's sitting on a velvet cloth. Like royalty. Like a prize. You look away. A man can only handle so much symbolic fruit before something inside begins to ferment. You're awoken at dawn by shouting. Not your usual, mildly cranky orders to swab the deck or recoil ropes. This is panicked shouting. The kind that gets people trampled or tossed overboard. You rush to the main deck. Bleary-eyed and still tasting last night's grog. Several sailors are clustered around the mainmast. Pointing upward. Above them, flapping in the wind, is the laundry line, and pinned to it, impaled neatly on a rope hook, is a pineapple. No one knows how it got there. The captain is livid. He doesn't speak. He glowers. The kind of glower that curdles soup and scares barnacles off the hull. He storms to the wheelhouse, slams the door, and doesn't emerge for the rest of the day. You're left with 100 questions and one fruitful mystery. Was it the pineapple? A decoy? A prank? A message? Merrick thinks it's a statement. Somebody's tired of looking and not tasting. He mutters, sharpening a spoon like a weapon. Another sailor swears it wasn't there during the night shift. Means someone snuck it up at dawn. He says, maybe to appease the sea. You point out that the sea probably doesn't eat pineapples. He shrugs. Neither do we. Apparently. You go below deck to escape the buzz. But it follows you. The pineapple is all anyone can talk about. You hear more stories, old ones, passed down from ship to ship. Legends of pineapples spoiling entire cargoes with their potent smell. Tales of cursed ones that made entire crews speak backwards. A fabled fruit from Bermuda that caused hallucinations of talking parrots demanding dental exams. Historians still argue whether any of this has factual basis. But seafaring logic doesn't run on facts. It runs on tradition, fear, and whatever keeps people from jumping into the ocean during their third month of biscuit-based meals. The cook, sensing opportunity, begins crafting pineapple-themed dishes without pineapple. He serves pineapple-flavored hardtack, which is just biscuit soaked in seawater and rum. He calls one dish, pineapple stew surprise. The surprise is, no pineapple. The morale sinks further. At supper, the mood is tense. Someone tried to carve a pineapple shape into a chunk of boiled yam. But it only made things worse. The resemblance was close enough to trigger several outbursts. That night, you're placed on watch. The moon is low, casting silver light over the waves. The sea hums softly, broken only by the gentle flap of sails and the occasional cough from below. You glance toward the wheelhouse. The pineapple is still there, back in its place. Untouched. It never left, according to the officer on duty. Which means, he adds, there's another pineapple on board. You laugh, weakly. Then you stop. Because he's not joking. The idea of a second pineapple causes visible unease among the crew. Not because it's rare, or valuable, but because it breaks the ritual. There's supposed to be one fruit of power. Not two. Two means something is wrong. A few brave souls search the ship the next morning. They check storage lockers, food crates, even Roger's stash under the floorboards. Nothing. Then someone finds a pineapple drawing scratched into the wall of the mess hall. It's detailed, almost reverent. No one saw who did it, Merrick says, but it wasn't there yesterday. The cook begins locking the galley at night. The captain emerges finally around noon. He gives no speech, offers no explanation. He simply walks the deck with a calm that unnerves everyone more than rage ever could. He makes eye contact with no one. But you notice something. His coat is stained. with something yellow. Sticky. Juice? The captain's coat disappears the next day. 1 minute it's hanging by the door to his quarters, proudly displaying its juice-streaked lapel like a badge of tropical indulgence, and the next, it's gone. No one says anything outright. But the air? Oh, the air is thick with suspicion. Was it stolen? Hidden? Consumed in a citrus-fueled ritual under moonlight? You hear every version, depending on who you ask. One sailor claims he saw the first mate creeping toward the coat with a candle and a fork. Another insists the coat climbed overboard on its own. You suspect Merrick, but only because he's suddenly wearing a very similar coat, one size too small and faintly pineapple-scented. He won't confirm, just smiles and says, "Fruits of the revolution. Lad, whatever the truth, the ship's hierarchy is visibly cracking. Not from mutiny, not yet, but from something subtler. Resentment, unequal portions, citrus-based social trauma. You're helping mend a torn sail when a commotion breaks out near the galley." A fight. 2 sailors locked in a struggle, not over rum. Not over a card game, but over a spoon. More specifically, a spoon with a single sliver of pineapple residue. It was left unwashed, foolishly, in the scullery sink. One man claimed it was his. The other simply wanted to smell it. The spoon is now broken. And morale? Also broken. The cook tries to calm everyone down with what he describes as tropical-inspired sea hash. It's just salted pork with shredded cabbage. But he's added a garnish of yellow turnip and called it deck fruit. No one is fooled. You overhear a heated conversation in the officers' mess. The junior officers want to cut the pineapple up before port, claim it's spoiled. Offer slices to the sick crew. Avoid scandal. But the captain refuses. The fruit is not for nourishment. He says, voice steady, it's for command. You write that down in your logbook. Partly because it sounds ominous. And partly because you suspect future historians will have a field day with that line. You can't stop thinking about the stories Merrick shared, how officers used fruit not to heal, but to separate themselves, a visual barrier of privilege. And now here you are, scrubbing decks with a bloodied toothbrush while a gold-glowing pineapple sits on a silver dish like a smug guest who brought no wine. You catch glimpses of it throughout the day. It doesn't move, obviously, but it feels like it's repositioned itself for better lighting, like it wants to be admired. A new rumor begins circulating by sunset. Some believe that whoever eats the pineapple will be cursed. Others believe it will make you captain. Both possibilities are terrifying. That night, a secret meeting happens below deck, by lantern light. Near the bulkhead, a handful of the more poetic sailors are there. You, Merrick, a few hammocks worth of disgruntled grog sippers. The subject? What to do about the pineapple. Ideas are tossed around. Cut it into exactly 30 pieces and give every man a slice. Tie it to the anchor and let Poseidon judge it. Throw it at the captain and run. Eventually, the group dissolves into quiet laughter. Not because the problem is solved, but because they're too tired to keep planning a fruit heist. You lie in your hammock later, staring into the lantern-lit gloom. The ship creaks. Someone coughs. The faint splash of water against the hull rises and falls, rhythmic and hypnotic. And somewhere above you, the pineapple continues its silent reign. Just out of reach, just enough to haunt your dreams. The next day dawns unusually quiet. No shouting, no scraped knuckles, no galley fire. Even Roger, usually stomping through the grain sacks like a furry landlord, is nowhere to be seen. You feel it before you know it. A shift in the atmosphere. Like the ship is holding its breath. It doesn't take long to find out why. The pineapple is missing. Gone. The silver dish? Still there. Immaculate. The velvet cloth? Still gently ruffled. But the fruit? Vanished. As though it were never real to begin with. And yet, you know it was. The entire crew gathers. Some stare blankly. Some pray. One sailor attempts to climb the rigging to look from above, but quickly forgets why and gets stuck halfway. Merrick arrives with the grim expression of someone who just found out his favorite hat has become self-aware and walked off. It's happened, he says, unnecessarily. You ask what exactly it is. He doesn't answer, just whispers. It always ends this way. The cook is the first to speak to the officers. Gone, Captain, he says. Didn't even leave the crown. The captain says nothing. The first mate, clearly itching to say, I told you so, simply announces that until the fruit is found, all non-essential meals will be withheld to prevent further temptations. This causes a low growl from the crowd. Not metaphorical, a real growl from the back. Possibly the bosun, whose stomach has developed a personality. Pineapple fever hits a new phase, fruit paranoia. Everyone suspects everyone else. The ship becomes a slow-moving game of Clue. Was it the cook in the galley with the bread knife? The deckhand in the pantry with the spoon? The rat in the grain barrel with sheer determination? By midday, a full search is underway. Lockers overturned, barrels sniffed. One man insists on checking the sky for any signs of airborne theft. You find yourself beneath the lowest deck, face pressed to the floorboards, inspecting a suspicious smear, sticky, yellow, but possibly just peach jam from 1762. The crew begins presenting theories, each more unhinged than the last. It melted. It was never real. It gained sentience and fled. The captain ate it and erased all evidence. The pineapple was a metaphor the whole time. Historians, were they aboard, would no doubt be scribbling notes furiously, debating if the pineapple hysteria qualified as mass delusion or spontaneous maritime folklore. That evening, a sailor named Fenwick is found in the galley, cradling a turnip he carved to resemble a pineapple. He's gently rocking it, whispering lullabies. You help lead him to his hammock. Dinner is unseasoned peas and tension. The cook tries to lift spirits with fruit-free pie. It's a dense, gray disk of flour and grease, baked to resemble something edible. He's decorated the top with pineapple-shaped slashes, which do nothing but trigger a few groans and one actual fainting spell. As night falls, a light drizzle dampens the deck, and your hammock creaks softly beneath you. Merrick passes you a hunk of biscuit and a flask of something he claims is lemon water but smells like soap. The pineapple's out there, he says, eyes half-lidded. Where, you ask? He shrugs. In someone's belly, or in the sea, or maybe in the next story someone tells. You sleep uneasily, dreaming again of glowing fruit and judgmental eyes. The morning after the pineapple vanishing is anything but ordinary. A boom echoes across the sea, not thunder, not cannon fire, but something sharper, sharper and closer. You race above deck with the others, squinting into the early light. Smoke coils from the forecastle. Not thick, just a polite puff, like a signal from a very confused volcano. The crew gathers around the source. One of the powder barrels has ruptured. Not fully exploded, thank heavens, but enough to blow its lid clean off and pepper the deck with splinters. No one was hurt, physically, at least. Emotionally, everyone's on edge. Someone mutters, "It's the pineapple's revenge." Another, "We angered it." You blink, it's gone. They all nod. Exactly. You're not sure what's more unsettling, that they believe it, or that you kind of do too. The barrel next to the explosion is blackened, singed. Its top is warped from the heat. And on it, a sticky yellow smear. No pineapple pieces, no rind, but the smell? Sweet, faintly spiced, undeniably tropical. The crew whispers. Some say someone tried to burn the pineapple. Others insist it combusted out of spite. The captain inspects the wreckage, says nothing, and orders the damaged area sealed. He walks away stiffly, like a man who's just lost a chess match to a fruit. By midday, rumors run rampant. It exploded itself to avoid being eaten. It was stuffed with powder all along. It's a weapon sent by the Spanish. Merrick pulls you aside. He's holding a small piece of metal. Found this near the blast. He says, it's decorative, from the captain's silver dish. You both stare at it. A twisted shard of what once held glory. Now warped and pitted. The pineapple may be gone, but its ghost lingers. The cook, either brave or foolhardy, decides to reclaim the ship's morale through dessert. He presents a round, golden tart, carefully arranged with slices of yellow beet and honey-glazed onions. Mock napple, he says. You don't even know where to begin. He hands you a piece. It's warm, soft, slightly sweet. You take a bite. It's not bad, disturbingly good, even. The others follow, some with skepticism, some with desperation. By sunset, the crew is murmuring, calm, almost giddy. Closest thing we'll get, someone says. Might as well enjoy it. But in the officers' quarters, the mood is different. The first mate is seen pacing. A sailor overhears snippets. Sabotage, not natural, can't lose authority? You catch one last line. No one else touches fruit. Ever again. The wind shifts suddenly. A strong gust. Sails flap. Ropes groan. The ship lurches. And from somewhere in the crow's nest comes a cry. Something floating off port. A skiff is lowered. Volunteers climb down. You watch from the rails, half expecting nothing more than driftwood. But what they return with is stunning. A crate, waterlogged, but sealed, and branded on the side? A crude engraving of a pineapple. You don't know whether to laugh or scream. The crate is dragged onto the deck like a beached whale, creaking and dripping saltwater. The crew gathers around, forming a hesitant semicircle. No one wants to be too close. Not after what happened last time. The carving on the side is unmistakable, a pineapple, etched with surprising detail for a crate that's likely been floating across the sea for days. Possibly weeks. The lines are sharp, the crown is regal, and the eyes, wait. Pineapples don't have eyes. You blink, look again. Still just wood. Probably. The captain stands before it, arms folded. The crate is clearly mocking him. He doesn't touch it, doesn't even acknowledge the engraving. Just turns to the quartermaster and says, "Check the contents." A crowbar is summoned. A prayer is mumbled. The lid groans open. Inside? Fruit. Rotting. Slimy. A sad parade of once brilliant tropical treasures now in various stages of decay. Mangoes turned to mush. Bananas blackened and oozing. A coconut that smells like spoiled milk's grumpier cousin. And at the bottom, half sunken in juice? A pineapple. It's intact. Not pristine, its crown is wilted. And its skin is bruised, but it's there. It's real. And the effect on the crew is immediate. Everyone leans in. Someone gasps. One sailor drops to his knees. You expect the captain to bark an order. Confiscate it. Toss it overboard. But instead, he just stares at it. Long and quiet, like he's weighing something. Not just the fruit, but the meaning, the consequence. Finally, he speaks. Cut it. Murmurs ripple through the crew. The cook hesitates. Sir? Cut it, clean it, and share it. A moment of stunned silence. Then cheers erupt, not wild, not riotous, but relieved, soft, like the exhale of a ship that's been holding its breath for far too long. The pineapple is taken to the galley. It's washed, peeled, and sliced with ceremony, laid out in little wedges on clean cloth, beside cups of weak grog and the last unspoiled biscuits. You get a piece. It's warm from the sun, sticky, juicy, and so sweet it almost makes you dizzy. You chew slowly, eyes closed. You hear others doing the same. No talking, just the quiet hum of chewing, of savoring. It tastes like everything you've been missing. Like fruit, like rebellion, like victory. Later, someone suggests naming it, the pineapple. That is, the one that arrived in the crate. Second coming, one sailor offers. Saint Pine. Another, Merrick, thoughtful as ever, proposes. Hope. No one disagrees. By dusk, the last slice is gone. The rind is buried respectfully overboard. The crate burned, the carving left unspoken. The captain retreats to his quarters. The first mate says nothing. And yet, that night, the crew sleeps sounder than they have in weeks. There are no strange dreams. No mutinous whispers. No hauntings from golden fruit. Just the rocking of the ship, the gentle flap of sailcloth, and the shared memory of sweetness. Land on the horizon. A thin, blurry line at first, just a smudge between sea and sky, but as the ship creeps forward under a patient breeze. That smudge grows teeth. Cliffs, palms, roofs, smoke spirals from fires you can't yet see. And the scent in the wind changes. Earthy, spiced, real. You're approaching port. The mood on the ship is peculiar. Not joyful, exactly, but something adjacent. Like a cautious smile that hasn't quite reached the eyes. The crew moves with purpose again. Ropes coiled just a bit tighter. Boots thumping with rhythm rather than resignation. Even Roger seems perkier. He's carrying a crumb of something toasted and acting like a king. You and Merrick stand at the bow, squinting into the glare. Think they'll have pineapples here? You ask. He smirks. Real ones, rotten ones, rental ones, maybe even a pie. The thought makes your stomach flutter. Not with hunger, but possibility. The ship eases into the harbor. Locals wave lazily from the dock. The scent of fish and roasting meat curls through the air. Musicians are playing somewhere, soft drums. The occasional horn. Children yell. Dogs bark. You've made it. But as you prepare to disembark, you notice something. The captain, usually first to descend, lingers. He's staring out at the bustling market, eyes fixed on a vendor cart stacked high with pineapples. Dozens of them, tall and proud. Cheap. The rare fruit of seafaring myth now sits in buckets, piled like potatoes, some with bruises, some half sliced and offered with toothpicks. You'd think he'd be relieved. But no, he looks lost. Because here, the pineapple holds no power, no symbolism, no throne, just a fruit among fruits. He steps down last. You and Merrick head straight to the edge of the market. You want one, a whole one, maybe not to eat, just to hold, to feel the weight of it, to smell it, not as symbol, but as snack. You find a merchant slicing one in half with a practiced flick. You ask the price. He shrugs. 2 copper. Less if you take a bruised one. You laugh, an actual laugh. Loud and from the gut. 2 copper. You hand over the coins. He passes you the fruit. And for a moment you're back on the deck, watching the spiky crown roll across the boards, listening to sailors whisper stories and warnings. Only now, you take a bite, and nothing happens. No curse, no storm, just juice. Merrick bites his, nods thoughtfully. Not bad, he says. Still think the one on the ship tasted better. Though, you agree, because it wasn't just about sweetness. It was about everything else it stood for, the distance, the desperation, the ridiculous hierarchy of hunger and hope. You watch the sailors scatter into the city, each clutching dreams and fruit and soft coins that smell like rust. You made it. And the pineapple? It's finally just a fruit again. Wind down, final 300 words. The sun begins to dip low over the water, painting the sea with lazy strokes of orange and lilac. The ship rests quietly at dock, sails folded, wood creaking like an old man settling into a favorite chair. The crew drifts away into the town, voices growing faint, footsteps scattering over cobblestones. The market slows, the wind softens, laughter lingers like perfume. And you? You sit on the edge of the dock, legs dangling, fruit core in hand, watching the water ripple like glass. You're not thinking anymore, just breathing, listening. The journey's weight eases off your shoulders like a coat finally hung up after too long. You remember the dreams, the hammocks, the hardtack, the strange, silent way power passed from hand to hand on creaking planks above endless ocean. You remember the laughter, the hunger, the absurd holiness of a spiky fruit. But now, the story is over, and you're safe, dry, full, free of the salt and smoke. So take one more breath. Let it out slowly. Let the waves lull your thoughts like a cradle rocking gently in the dark. The world is quiet now. The sea is calm. And the pineapple? The pineapple can rest too. Sweet dreams.